Welcome to the Chronicles of Lost Relations. Before we dive into today's narrative, we kindly ask you to support our friend's new channel, Timeless Audio Tales, where he curates some truly captivating stories. You can find a link in the description box below. We invite you to explore the channel and click that subscribe button. Let us embark on today's narrative. At times, I still find it challenging to fully grasp the concept. My soon-to-be ex-wife, Lisa, and I remain legally married, but that status is merely a formality imposed by the legal system. In our area, there's a requirement to be apart for a full year before a divorce can be finalized, which honestly seems like prolonging the unavoidable at this stage. In this designated cooling-off period, she was meant to secure her own residence in close proximity to facilitate a balanced custody arrangement for our 3 children. What is the reason for our divorce? Lisa's twin sister, Sarah, proposed a remarkable idea, that Lisa should become their surrogate. It seems that Sarah and her husband, Kevin, have been facing challenges in their journey to start a family. I understand. That's unfortunate for them. Yet, rather than opting for a conventional surrogate, adoption, or any other viable alternative, they concluded that since Sarah and Lisa are twins, Lisa was the ideal candidate to bear their child. The most challenging aspect? I only discovered this plan much later on. It appears that this had been brewing for weeks before I even got a hint of it. They didn't take the time to sit down and engage in a meaningful discussion with me. No, that would have been far too rational. Instead, Lisa casually brought it up to me one night as if it were nothing significant. I recall every detail of how it unfolded. We were lounging on the couch when she suddenly revealed it. I've been contemplating a significant gesture for Sarah, yet she continued to scroll on her phone as if we were merely discussing dinner options. Indeed, I caught a glimpse of her. What sort of significant matter? At last, she raised her gaze. I will be her surrogate. Initially, I believed she was just playing around. I released a half-hearted chuckle, anticipating the twist in the tale. Yet, she continued to gaze at me as if she anticipated my joy in the situation. Excuse me, could you clarify that? I straightened my posture. So, you're actually going to be the one to carry their baby? She nodded, her smile radiating as if it were the most effortless thing imaginable. Indeed, Sarah and Kevin have been on this journey for quite some time, and given our identical twin connection, it feels almost as if Sarah is nurturing her own little one. My stomach dropped. Lisa, are you for real? When did this actually arise? She gave a slight shrug. Some weeks back, we had been discussing it for quite some time. I gazed at her, attempting to comprehend the words that had just reached my ears. So, you didn't consider bringing it up to me? Lisa let out a deep breath, placing her phone aside. This isn't about you, Grant. It's my body, my decision. I don't require approval. May I have your permission? Lisa, we are united in marriage. This is a significant choice, one that impacts both of us deeply. Why didn't you discuss this with me beforehand? She let out a dramatic sigh. I'm sharing this with you right now. Oh, wonderful. Now that you've reached your conclusion, that's not the way marriage operates. Her expression grew steely. I anticipated you would respond this way. I held off for that reason. Yet this is unfolding, Grant. Regardless of your support for me, I exhaled slowly, a slight shake of my head accompanying the release. And there you have it. It's either I join in or what happens next. She folded her arms across her chest. Perhaps it's time to reconsider our approach. And there it stood, the final demand. Though she didn't state it explicitly, the implication was unmistakable. Join us, or step aside. It was beyond my comprehension. It wasn't merely the surrogacy that troubled me, however. Absolutely, that played a significant role. The realization that everything had been orchestrated without my knowledge was unsettling. Lisa, Sarah, and Kevin had been plotting this entire situation for weeks, perhaps even months, without so much as a word to me. So, I was just meant to accept it without question. I gazed at her for an extended moment. If you proceed with this, it's over between us. Her expression contorted in exasperation. Your demands are quite unreasonable. I chuckled, though it wasn't from joy. Am I being unreasonable? Lisa, you're truly making a significant choice without taking my feelings into account. Do you really believe that's not an issue? She shook her head, filled with frustration. I'm creating something lovely for my sister. I believed you would grasp it. I rose to my feet, my fingers gliding through my hair. I suppose I don't. Several months later, and can you believe it? She's expecting a child. Upon hearing Lisa's words, I simply nodded in acknowledgement, replied with a okay, and then exited the room. Just 2 days later, I took the step to file for divorce. I prepared this during the same week my wife shared her plans with me. I simply bided my time for her to put her plans into motion. It seems this took everyone by surprise. Lisa pretended she was caught off guard, which honestly astonishes me. Did she really believe I was just putting on a show? That I would simply move on and accept my wife expecting a child with another man? I clearly outlined the consequences of her actions, and now she dares to feign surprise? Neither Sarah nor Kevin showed any improvement. They attempted to manipulate my emotions to make me stay, using every tired phrase imaginable. "You're leaving your wife," Sarah said, shaking her head as if I were a cold-hearted villain. "She requires your assistance at this crucial moment." I released a harsh chuckle. She's the one who made this decision, not I. Kevin, ever the peacemaker, sought to cushion the impact. "Grant, this is a wonderful gesture she's making for us. Can't you see that?" "Ah, I understand now," I remarked, folding my arms across my chest. "It appears that both of you had a desire for a child, and Lisa has chosen to be the one to carry it, without even consulting me beforehand. That doesn't qualify as a marriage. That doesn't qualify as a partnership. That's simply a choice she made, and now she must face the repercussions." Sarah's gaze sharpened. "You promised to be there for her, through thick and thin. She promised to honor me and refrain from making significant decisions without my knowledge." I retorted, "And here we find ourselves." And so it was settled. The paperwork has been submitted, marking the official start of the separation process. Initially, Lisa pretended to be indifferent. She maintained that same air of superiority, as if she were above everything else. "I don't need you," she declared one night after I informed her that I was finished with the conversation. "I'm capable of managing this by myself." "Wonderful," I remarked. "Proceed with that action." Yet, as the months unfolded, the weight of reality began to close in on her. In an instant, her confidence began to wane. She lacked the same level of control. Once I initiated the divorce process, the atmosphere in the home turned excruciatingly tense. Lisa began to behave as if everything remained the same, as if I was still expected to be concerned about her pregnancy, or, even more troubling, as if I should play a part in it in some way. In the meantime, I had completely disengaged mentally. What would motivate me to put effort into a pregnancy that doesn't belong to me? A pregnancy that was precisely the cause of our separation? She certainly didn't move out. Securing a spot in our vicinity proved to be quite a challenge, particularly not during pregnancy. She repeatedly expressed her desire to remain nearby for the child's benefit. However, let's face it, it was primarily about her convenience. Whenever she required assistance, she continued to anticipate that I would behave as if I were her partner. One evening, she entered the living room while I was engrossed in a show. "Would you mind making a quick trip to the store for me?" I remained completely focused on the screen. For what purpose? Crunchy, tangy delights, and perhaps a scoop of ice cream. I released a humorless chuckle. "No, that's no longer my responsibility." She let out a sigh, as if I were being unreasonable. "Grant, let's go. It's merely a brief journey." I finally faced her. "Lisa, I no longer hold the title of your husband. Consider reaching out to Sarah or Kevin for assistance with that." Her jaw clenched, yet silence enveloped her. Instead, she pivoted and strode away. As the weeks passed, she began to subtly reveal just how challenging everything had become. The level of stress was overwhelming. The extent of her solitude in her tasks. Initially, I chose to overlook her. Honestly, what was she anticipating? That I would come in and be the hero, just as I had in her earlier pregnancies? Those were our children. The decision was solely made by her and her sister. I never agreed to any of this. Ultimately, the subtle suggestions escalated into direct grievances. "I'm unsure how I'll manage this without your support," she remarked one evening, stroking her belly as if that would somehow evoke my concern. I hardly lifted my gaze from my laptop. Reach out to Sarah. Reach out to Kevin. She released a weary exhale. This situation feels incredibly unjust, and facing it by myself is overwhelming. I shut my laptop and turned my gaze toward her. Do you genuinely wish to discuss fairness? I believe it was unjust to reach this decision without my input. Yet here we stand. She was at a loss for words. She merely pressed her lips together and averted her gaze. I repeatedly conveyed the same message to her. It was Sarah and Kevin who longed for this baby. They were the ones who crafted all these assurances about how extraordinary this surrogacy journey would unfold. Allow them to rise to the occasion. Yet, they seemed to elude discovery for the majority of the time. Kevin, in particular, appeared to be disengaging from the entire scenario. He arrived for the significant moments. Medical consultations. A sporadic task related to the little one. But on a daily basis, absent without a trace. One evening, driven by a sense of curiosity, I inquired of Lisa, "Where has Kevin been recently?" I believed he was meant to be fully committed to this. She mentioned, shifting uncomfortably, that he has been looking after Sarah. She is in the process of healing from her car accident. I conceded that point. However, it's not as if he was unaware that this child was on the way. Shouldn't he have anticipated this? Lisa's expression grew tense. He is putting forth his utmost effort. He's currently facing a significant amount of pressure. I let out a derisive laugh. Indeed? And you aren't? Her silence spoke volumes, and that was all I needed. She was reluctant to acknowledge it. Yet it was evident that Kevin's focus had undeniably changed. He found a simple escape, and he was seizing it. Meanwhile, Lisa was pressing down on me more and more. It felt as though I had some sort of duty to compensate for other shortcomings. She began requesting small favors, hauling bags of groceries, assembling the crib, and gently massaging her back when discomfort struck. Each and every time, I put an end to her words. "Grant, would you be able to assist me with this?" "Nope. Not my child, not my concern." On a fateful night, everything reached a boiling point. She lounged on the couch, her hand gently caressing her belly as she let out a theatrical sigh, unmistakably seeking my notice. I tried to overlook her for as long as possible, but in the end, she broke the silence. "You know," she said, her voice tinged with annoyance, "you remain my husband. It would be nice if you could at least feign some interest." That was the end of it. I lost my composure. "No, I'm no longer your husband. Not in any significant manner," I declared, rising to my feet. "Your decision to proceed with this in secret was clearly made without my knowledge. Don't approach me now just because you're discovering it's more challenging than you anticipated. Reach out to Kevin. Reach out to Sarah. Reach out to someone else. Just exclude me from this." Her expression twisted, and in an instant, the tears began to flow. That had turned into her default response whenever circumstances didn't align with her desires. Yet at this juncture, I had become impervious to it. "I'm heading to bed," I stated matter-of-factly, turning away while she remained on the couch, tears streaming down her face. The following weeks unfolded in a similar manner. She persistently attempted to manipulate my emotions into offering assistance, but I rebuffed her each time. It wasn't solely about establishing limits for myself, although that played a significant role. It was fundamentally about conviction. If I began to assist now, even in small ways, Lisa would interpret it as a signal that I was becoming more lenient. What comes next? Then I would always be trapped by her expectations. The arrival of the baby marked a significant shift in events. I remained entirely uninvolved, refrained from going to the hospital, didn't make any visits, nothing at all. I had informed her in advance that I wouldn't be participating, so it wasn't as if she was unaware. Yet, she reached out to me from the hospital, her voice trembling with tears as she pleaded for my presence. "Please grant this request. I can't bear to face this by myself," she cried into the phone. I feel a sense of fear. I maintained a steady and resolute tone. "You chose to engage with a man who is not your spouse. You made that decision on your own, so please don't involve me in this. Kevin is the one responsible for that situation. You should reach out to him." She released a trembling sigh. I certainly did. He isn't answering. Next, reach out to Sarah. Reach out to your mother. This issue belongs to them, not to me. You're being cruel, she whispered, her voice heavy with emotion. A deep breath escaped me. Absolutely not, Lisa. I am honoring my commitment. You were aware of my position long before any of this unfolded. There was no reply from her. A moment later, the connection was lost. Upon her return home with the baby, the true whirlwind began. It seemed as though she believed that introducing the baby into the home would somehow compel me to feel something. Surprise, it didn't. She began scattering baby items throughout the house. Containers scattered in the kitchen, baby supplies resting on the couch. It feels like a strategy designed to manipulate me into recognition. However, I refrained from taking the bait. I simply navigated around the chaos and continued with my day. During the night, the situation deteriorated further. The infant would wail, and she would appear at my door, knocking softly. "Grant, I implore you, just this once, could you lend a hand?" She implored, her voice weary. "No." She released a sigh of exasperation. "For heaven's sake, it's 3 a.m. It feels like an eternity since I last closed my eyes in slumber. Your child, your responsibility. Now handle it." I remained nestled in my sheets, not even bothering to rise. That child is not mine. That's not something I need to concern myself with. A heavy silence lingered, and then I heard her footsteps echoing as she stormed down the hall. The following day, she banged the cabinets and whispered to herself about how awful I was. I must confess, there were instances when I experienced a pang of remorse, not due to any belief in my own fault, but rather because the child bore no guilt in this situation. The child shouldn't be blamed for the chaos created by their parents. Yet, I was aware that intervening wouldn't truly improve the circumstances. It would simply allow Lisa to continue depending on me rather than those who truly desired this baby from the beginning. The breaking point arrived when Lisa explicitly insisted that I become more involved. This situation cannot be ignored or dismissed. One evening, she erupted, standing before me with the baby cradled in her arms. It feels unjust that I am handling everything by myself. I hardly lifted my gaze from the screen. Next, reach out to Kevin. I certainly did. Once more, he's caught up with Sarah. I simply shrugged. Not my concern, not my issue. Her eyes burned with intensity. Your selfishness is truly astounding. This is something you're obligated to fulfill. That certainly caught my eye. I put my laptop down and faced her intense gaze directly. "I owe you nothing," I stated plainly. "You're acting as if I betrayed you," she shouted. I rose to my feet and declared, "I don't care if you were involved with your child's father or if you were unfaithful. Your actions have shown a lack of respect towards me by choosing to have a child with someone else. I cautioned you. I opposed it, and there will be repercussions. You asserted that it was your body and your decision. This is my life, and the decision rests with me. This falls under your purview. Accept it." That was the end. That was the moment she truly shattered. "You're a cold-hearted fiend," she exclaimed. "There will come a time when you'll look back on this and wish you had chosen differently." She marched away, and for a brief moment, I believed that was the conclusion of the matter. However, an hour later, she returned, a bag draped over her shoulder, with the baby snugly wrapped in her arms. "I can't do this," she said, her voice trembling. "Not while you're behaving this way." I merely nodded. She gazed at me intently, as if she believed I might attempt to intervene. I did not. 2 days later, Lisa departed with the baby, and I thought, at last, this could be the opportunity I've been waiting for. I wasn't so gullible as to think she was truly gone for good. For a brief period, the house fell into a serene silence. No weeping infant, no feelings of remorse, no disputes. A sense of relief washed over me, as if a heavy burden had been removed from my chest. However, simplicity is a fleeting concept whenever Lisa enters the scene. The call began the following morning, first from her mother, then her sister, the very sister who orchestrated this entire situation, and even her sister's husband joined in. It felt as though they had orchestrated a strategy to exhaust me. Each and every one of them echoed the same messages. Lisa felt a wave of emotions. The baby remained pure and untouched by the chaos, and it was my responsibility to rise to the occasion for the family's well-being. Sarah, her twin sister, was particularly unyielding. Her voicemail was lengthy, laced with a tone of superiority. "I can't believe how cold-hearted you are, Grant," she said, her voice cutting through the air. "Lisa has just welcomed a new life into the world, and you chose to leave her during one of the most delicate moments she will ever face. Is this truly the essence of your being? Is there any essence within you?" I dismissed the message and removed it without a word. What was the purpose? This wasn't an unexpected pregnancy that we had both agreed to. Lisa made this decision, a decision she took unilaterally, despite my clear indication that I would not back her on it. Then there was Kevin, the biological father of the baby. He attempted to evoke sympathy, his voice laced with insincere emotion. "Things are quite challenging at the moment," he expressed during the call. "Sarah is on the mend from the accident, while Lisa is facing her own challenges. We're all in this together, my friend. It's essential that we uplift one another." I almost chuckled at the sheer boldness. "Kin?" I said again, unable to believe it. "Is this a joke? You hardly contributed during the pregnancy, and now you expect us to function as a team? That's unjust," he argued. "I am making an effort." "Put in more effort," I interrupted him. "This does not concern me. Take responsibility and look after your own child." Then there was the mother of Lisa. She typically approaches things with a level head, yet this time, she found herself aligning with Lisa's perspective. When she called, her voice carried a weight of disappointment. "I simply can't grasp your perspective, Grant," she remarked. "Lisa remains your spouse, as do you." I interjected, "No, she isn't." My tone was steady, yet resolute. "She ceased to be my partner the instant she chose to bring another man's child into this world. If your concern runs deep, perhaps you ought to be the one offering her assistance." Quietude, then a soft click as she ended the call. That's when it seemed to dawn on her. I wasn't going to give in. A few days later, Sarah returned. I anticipated her arrival, yet I was unready for the spectacle she unveiled. She entered as if she hadn't just unleashed a torrent of insults before making her dramatic exit. The infant was secured to her chest in one of those carriers. Her face showed weariness, yet it radiated defiance. It was clear from the start that she was preparing for yet another bout. "We need to talk," she declared, positioning herself in the center of the living room as if preparing to deliver a compelling presentation. I remained completely absorbed in my task, not even glancing up. "Regarding what topic?" "This." She pointed to the baby as if I wasn't already aware of what this was. "We won't be overlooked indefinitely." "I'm not ignoring you," I stated plainly. "I have expressed myself quite clearly. This falls on you, not me." That was all she required to embark on yet another lengthy discourse about the challenges of being a single mother, lamenting the injustice of having to shoulder every responsibility alone. She repeatedly expressed sentiments such as, "This isn't what I agreed to, and I never imagined you would betray me like this." I remained seated, allowing her words to flow freely. What was the purpose of the debate? She had no intention of seeking a resolution. She merely sought a target for her frustration. As she paused, I locked eyes with her and remarked, "You chose this path the instant you decided to bring their child into the world. Please don't place the blame on me." That triggered her reaction. She began to raise her voice. Her expression contorted with exasperation. "Your actions are quite harsh, Grant. You can't possibly understand the challenges I'm facing. Do you really believe this comes easily to me? There will come a time when you'll look back on this and wish you had chosen differently. I have faith that you will." The infant began to wail, most likely due to her incredibly loud yelling. She faced me, her voice sharp. "Are you really just going to sit there? Take action." I merely shrugged. "Not my concern, not my issue." Her cheeks flushed with anger as she marched to the bedroom, the door crashing shut behind her with a force that shook the very walls. The infant continued to wail, yet I remained still. If she felt the urge to scream and slam doors, that was her choice, but I wasn't going to allow her to unload her issues onto me. That evening, she employed an alternative approach. Rather than raising her voice, she entered the kitchen while I was preparing dinner and adopted a friendly demeanor. She rested against the counter, observing me as I cooked, her voice gentle, tinged with uncertainty. "I long for the days gone by," she remarked after a prolonged pause. I continued to slice the vegetables, my gaze fixed elsewhere. "Well, that certainly applies to you." With a soft sigh, she moved in closer. "I truly mean it, Grant. My feelings for you remain strong. I long for us to reunite as a family once more." I let out a derisive laugh. "Is it a family?" I glanced at her, arching an eyebrow in curiosity. "This was a unit bound by love. You discarded that." She gulped, her eyes shimmering with emotion. I erred. I placed the knife aside and folded my arms across my chest. "Indeed you did." She nodded, drawing in a trembling breath. "I apologize." She offered an apology, in a way. She expressed regret for the outcome, yet she remained unwilling to acknowledge her own decisions. I wasn't convinced. "The opportunity has passed," I informed her, my tone devoid of emotion. "Your choice has been made. Now you must come to terms with it." She began to weep once more, her shoulders trembling as she managed to say, "I don't want to get divorced. I need support to get through this." I let out a sigh, feeling weary of the discussion. "You're not in this by yourself," I mentioned. "There are Sarah and Kevin." Yet, that was not the response she sought. She wasn't seeking their assistance. She was looking for mine. She expected me to come in and resolve everything, just as I had in the past. However, this time is different. I faced her and stated, "You don't truly desire a divorce. Your actions speak volumes about your feelings for me, especially since you chose to have a child with someone else despite my cautions. You hesitate to end our marriage because I provide you with a secure way of living. You simply wish to hold on to it. However, heed my counsel. Learn to embrace solitude and navigate your chaos independently. The divorce has been initiated, and soon there will come a moment when this way of life will fade away." As I settled into bed that night, the sound of her sobs drifted in from the next room. I had mixed feelings about it. There was no strong emotion either way. I experienced a complete absence of emotion. And that was the moment I realized, without a doubt, it had come to an end. Any semblance of love or connection we once shared has vanished. She had reduced everything to ashes through her decisions. The following morning, she made one final desperate attempt. She approached me, shadows beneath her eyes, a look of desperation etched on her face, the infant cradled in her arms. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling, "just hold her for a little while so I can sleep. I haven't experienced more than 2 hours in days." For a moment, I nearly gave in. Nearly. Yet, I reflected on all the events that had brought me to this point. How she had deceived. How she had broken my trust. How she had pulled me into a situation I never consented to. "No," I stated firmly. Her eyes grew wide. "Excuse me?" "Reach out to Kevin." I informed her. "He is the one who holds the title of father. He ought to be assisting you." Her expression was one of shock, as if I had just struck her. Her lip quivered, and tears cascaded down her cheeks. "It seems you have quite a strong dislike for me, don't you?" I gently shook my head. "I don't harbor any ill feelings towards you." I spoke, my voice unwavering. "However, I refuse to be manipulated into tidying up your chaos. I refuse to take on this burden any longer, and I'm finished with the charade." Once more, she departed after that. This time, I believe it could be permanent. Later, her mom reached out to inform me that Lisa would be staying with her for the time being. I mentioned to her that it was likely for the best. Perhaps at last, I can attain some tranquility. 3 days after Lisa departed for the second time, a sense of calm enveloped the atmosphere, at least temporarily. The house was silent, indeed, yet lacked tranquility. A persistent, unsettling sensation lingered, hinting that something more was on the horizon. As if tranquility hangs in the air, just moments before chaos unfolds. I was right all along. A week after her departure, the letters and emails began to arrive. Lisa's family all together, beyond the typical guilt trips and emotional manipulation. I was accustomed to that, but intense disputes. It felt as though they were attempting to exhaust me with an overwhelming barrage. Lisa's mom sent me a lengthy letter detailing how I was being unreasonable emphasizing that family should always take precedence and urging me to take responsibility. She elaborated on the challenges Lisa faced during her upbringing, detailing the sacrifices made and emphasizing that I had a responsibility to offer my support now. I glanced over it, let out a weary sigh, and discarded it without a second thought. What was I meant to do with that? They weren't offering any fresh insights. They had been riding the villainous wave since the start of the year, and now it was merely background noise. In contrast, Sarah and Kevin opted for a more straightforward method. One evening, Kevin arrived at my house without any prior notice. As I swung the door open and caught sight of him standing there, all fidgety and out of place, a sinking feeling washed over me. I just knew this encounter was destined for trouble. "Hey there," he said, attempting to keep it relaxed. "May we have a conversation?" I rested against the doorframe, arms crossed in contemplation. "Concerning what topic?" He shifted awkwardly, as if weighing the choice between stepping inside or simply turning back to leave. At last, he let out a deep breath. "Concerning the infant. Concerning all matters, indeed." I remained still. "Express what you must express." He appeared taken aback, as if he genuinely believed I would extend an invitation for him to come inside. "Absolutely not." He began to go on, sharing how difficult everything had become for him since Sarah's accident, how he was struggling to manage it all, and how much he truly needed my support to step in and assist. He included it for Lisa's benefit. For the sake of Lisa? I interrupted, cutting him off. My tone cut through the air, and I noticed him recoil. "This is not my concern. That's your creation. Your sister-in-law consented to this, fully aware of the implications involved. What brings you here?" He appeared quite flustered. "It goes beyond the baby. It revolves around family. We share a bond in this experience." I emitted a brief, mirthless chuckle. "Absolutely not." He began to speak, but I interrupted him before he could go on. "All of this was decided by you, Sarah, and Lisa without my knowledge. You left me out, and now you expect me to owe you something? Be genuine." He attempted to make his case, but I was not inclined to entertain it. "Leave," I commanded, retreating into the house. "And don't return unless you're ready to fully own up to your role as a parent." He was dissatisfied with that response, yet he found himself with limited options. He lingered for a moment, his jaw clenched, then whispered something about how I'd come to regret this before turning on his heel and striding away. Perhaps I shall. Perhaps I shall refrain. Regardless, it's not something I need to concern myself with. Meanwhile, Lisa remained at her mom's, and for a fleeting instant, I entertained the thought that perhaps, just perhaps, she was beginning to unravel the complexities of her situation. However, that's not the case. Instead, she began to utilize the children as a means of influence. One evening, she reached out and inquired if she could visit to enjoy some time together. I agreed, as they remain her children, and I had no intention of preventing her from being with them. However, upon her arrival, it became clear that she had a purpose in mind. She devoted the entire evening to expressing the challenges she faced, detailing how the baby kept her awake through the night, and how she simply required a bit of assistance to regain her footing. Then she revealed the shocking truth. She suggested the possibility of returning to live together, only until she could sort everything out. I put an end to that right away. I responded to her in a straightforward manner. "Your decision has been made. You can't just return here and pretend that everything is as it was." Her brow furrowed, and her gaze was filled with desperation. "Grant, this isn't solely about my perspective. The children require their mother. I mentioned that they have their mother. You remain their mother, Lisa. However, that doesn't imply I must allow you to return to living here." She let out a sharp breath, unmistakably annoyed. "This situation feels unjust, both for them and for myself. You're causing a rift in our family." I let out a derisive laugh. "Actually, that was your doing. You decided to destroy our marriage for your sister. You can't assume the role of the victim in this situation." It was the first moment I witnessed genuine fury reflected in her gaze. Until that point, it had primarily been a mix of sorrow, self-reproach, and exasperation. However, this was unlike anything else. Her gaze pierced through me, filled with disdain, as if I were the most despicable being to ever exist. "One day, you'll come to regret this," she spat. "Yes, you." With a swift motion, she gathered her belongings and marched out, the door crashing shut in her wake. The subsequent weeks unfolded with an unexpected lack of excitement. I established a rhythm with the children, concentrating on providing them with as much consistency as possible. Occasionally, they inquired about their mother, why she wasn't residing with us, reasons for the differences. I maintained clarity in my responses. "My mom and I are navigating our way through things," I would say. "Yet, our affection for you runs deep." It wasn't entirely untrue. My love for my kids surpassed everything else, and I understood that Lisa felt the same in her unique manner. Yet, it remained true that we had diverged onto entirely separate journeys at this point. She had crafted her own situation, and I had no intention of joining her in it. That being said, I couldn't help but observe how much lighter I felt in the absence of her constant presence. After so many years, I finally felt free from the constant tension and chaos that had surrounded me. It was simply me and the children navigating our way through life one day at a time. And truthfully, it was quite satisfying. Next, the legal matters unfolded. The initiation of divorce proceedings has officially begun, unveiling a myriad of complexities. Lisa's attorney attempted to portray me as the one lacking reason, asserting that I had deserted her in a challenging moment and declined to assist with the baby. My attorney responded with the evidence. The infant did not belong to me. I was under no compulsion to assist. Lisa chose to proceed with the surrogacy, regardless of my concerns. It was chaotic, yet I felt no concern. I possessed the undeniable truth, supported by an abundance of documentation to validate my claims. I had everything: texts, emails, and even voicemails. All the evidence indicated that Lisa was fully aware of her actions, and I had communicated my boundaries clearly from the very beginning. Yet, despite having the truth backing me, it was utterly draining. Just when I believed I had finally wrapped up the chaos she brought, another twist would emerge. Their attempts to sway me were relentless, as they sought to evoke a sense of obligation to mend the situation. Even Sarah and Kevin attempted to intervene, as if they possessed any authority to dictate how I should navigate my own life. I turned a blind eye to each and every one of them. I had devoted ample time to tidying up Lisa's chaos, and I had no intention of doing so once more. Amidst everything, one truth emerged with undeniable clarity. I was finished. Finished with the remorse. Finished with the deception. Finished with the endless theatrics. After what felt like an eternity, I finally sensed that I was regaining control over my own life. Despite Lisa and her family's attempts to draw me back in, I was resolute in my decision to resist. This was my opportunity to begin anew, to reconstruct my life, to concentrate on what truly mattered: my children, my own joy, and a future free from the burden of mending the fallout from another's poor choices. For the first time in months, that future seemed attainable. After weeks of tumultuous exchanges, I finally experienced a glimpse of what my life could be like free from Lisa's relentless turmoil. It wasn't flawless. I was still navigating the complexities of balancing my job, being present for my children, and the chaotic process of the divorce. Yet, it seemed as though progress was finally being made. Lisa primarily spent her time with her mom, which eased the tension in the house significantly. She continued to have her visitation days with the children, and although I aimed to maintain harmony for their benefit, it wasn't always an easy journey. On one of her visits, the children returned chattering about the baby. My youngest, full of wonder and curiosity, gazed up at me and inquired, "Will the baby be living with us someday?" I inhaled deeply, selecting my phrases with precision. "No, but," I said softly, "the baby will be with Aunt Sarah and Uncle Kevin." My eldest scowled. "However, my mother mentioned that she had the baby. Doesn't that imply it's somewhat like our younger sibling?" I massaged the nape of my neck. What's the best way to talk to children about surrogacy? How can you help them see that their mother's decisions were not a reflection of their worth, without speaking negatively about her? With a steady voice, I conveyed that Mom played a crucial role in bringing the baby into the world. However, it's not the same as it was when she had you all. This little one won't be joining our household. He belongs to the family of Aunt Sarah and Uncle Kevin. My oldest nodded slowly, clearly attempting to convey comprehension, yet I could see the wheels turning in their mind. However, my youngest was not content. But why doesn't the baby resemble us? I paused, seeking the right words to clarify my thoughts. Sometimes adults make decisions that surprise us, I said thoughtfully. Regardless of anything else, you and your sibling hold the utmost significance in my life. They chose not to delve deeper, yet I sensed that the conversation lingered in their minds. It lingered in my mind for days. In the meantime, I needed to focus on organizing my own life. The separation was not merely a toll on my emotions. It was a significant financial burden as well. Lisa's attorney was advocating for spousal support, contending that she was unable to work due to the baby. She made this choice, I remarked, feeling a surge of frustration as I sat opposite my lawyer in his office. I never consented to any of this, and now she expects me to cover the costs? My attorney acknowledged with a nod, sifting through the documents. That's their agenda, but we have a compelling argument. The infant does not belong to you. This was a surrogacy agreement that she entered into willingly. She has the backing of her sister and brother-in-law. No matter how often I established my boundaries, it seemed that Lisa always discovered new methods to draw me back in. She would reach out at unpredictable moments, often during a crisis, anticipating that I would abandon all else to resolve it. One afternoon, while I was immersed in my tasks, my phone vibrated, signaling an incoming call from her. I considered letting it go, but a nagging feeling suggested she would persist until I answered. With a heavy breath, I responded, "What is it, Lisa?" I inquired, preparing myself for what was to come. She wept. "Grant, I'm feeling quite lost right now. I'm in a tough spot with the baby and need to begin my job search soon. But daycare costs are a challenge. I would appreciate your assistance, even if it's just a small amount, until I find my footing." I tightened my jaw. "Lisa, I cannot take on the responsibility for the baby. Sarah and Kevin are the ones for that task. This decision was yours to make. However, assistance is not available to me at this moment," she retorted, her tone heavy with exasperation. "You can't possibly grasp the challenges I'm facing." I let out a slow breath, striving to maintain my composure. "Absolutely not, Lisa. It seems you anticipate that I will resolve your issues when the outcomes of your choices are not to your liking. I've reached my limit with this." Silence lingered on the other end, followed by a sharp, bitter laugh that cut through the stillness. "Your lack of compassion is truly striking, Grant." Just as I was about to reply, she ended the call. I gazed at my phone for a moment, shaking my head in disbelief. 5 minutes later, a new message appeared, this time from her mother. "It's hard to fathom how you could abandon the one who brought your children into this world. I once believed you to be a good man, but it seems I was mistaken. What makes you so heartless?" I released a brief, mirthless chuckle, perfectly timed. Subsequently, I replied, "I was taken aback to learn that your daughter would prioritize her own desires over her family, even to the extent of sacrificing her children for a fleeting connection with her brother-in-law. Enough with the lectures on decency, and please refrain from texting me." It eventually evolved into a recurring theme. Lisa encountered an obstacle, and rather than addressing it on her own or seeking help from Sarah and Kevin, she opted to pull me into the situation. Initially, I would reply with courtesy yet assertiveness whenever Lisa or her family contacted me, attempting to draw me into her issues. As time passed, I came to understand that it was futile. Regardless of how clearly I articulated my thoughts, they would manipulate my words to portray me as the villain. Ultimately, I decided to cease all responses entirely. I had no obligation to rescue her, and I refused to let her manipulate my feelings into believing otherwise. In spite of it all, there were instances when I found myself nearly feeling pity for Lisa. Each time I encountered her, she appeared increasingly fatigued, as if the burden of her decisions was finally taking its toll. At one of our custody exchanges, she paused before she spoke. "Could we have a moment to discuss something in private?" she inquired. I paused for a moment, then gave a slight nod. Absolutely, of course. We distanced ourselves from the children, and she inhaled deeply, avoiding my gaze. I just wanted to say, "I'm sorry," she murmured softly, "for everything. I recognize my mistakes, and I understand the pain I've caused you." I genuinely believed I was making the right choice back then. I was at a loss for words in that moment. A part of me felt compelled to express that the moment for apologies had passed. Another aspect sought to understand why she hadn't considered the repercussions prior to proceeding with all of this. Ultimately, I simply nodded. "I sincerely wish for everything to turn out well for you," I remarked with a straightforward tone. She seemed poised to express more, yet I didn't allow her the opportunity. I had no desire to revisit past hurts. Any guilt or regret she experienced was her own to bear, not something I needed to shoulder. The divorce was prolonged, chaotic, and draining, yet ultimately, I secured what was most important: the children. The court decided in my favor, awarding me full custody while allowing Lisa visitation rights. It brought a sense of ease, yet it fell short of triumph. In circumstances such as these, victory eludes everyone. The outcome for my children was truly the best, and that has always been my sole desire. Lisa struggled fiercely to portray herself as the wrong party. Her attorney contended that she had acted out of selflessness, believing she was making the best choice possible. Yet the court remained acutely aware of the reality at hand. They finally perceived what I had observed from the very beginning. Lisa proved to be inconsistent, making decisions without considering the repercussions and attempting to manipulate our children to achieve her desires. I found myself in that courtroom, absorbing the words of her attorney as they spoke of the challenges she faced, her deep love for the children, and her rightful claim to shared custody. I'll confess, a tiny part of me questioned whether the judge would be persuaded by it. However, my attorney rose and presented the facts clearly. The unpredictability, the unfulfilled commitments, the moments when Lisa had put her own needs before those of our children. He highlighted my role as their main caregiver for months, while Lisa faced challenges in managing her life. The proof was undeniable. As the judge delivered the final verdict, a sense of relief washed over me, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders. Complete custody. Lisa would have scheduled visitation, but I would take charge of the decisions, ensuring stability and providing them with the home they required. I cast a quick look in her direction, and for an instant, it seemed as though tears were on the verge of spilling from her eyes. Perhaps she had persuaded herself that she would receive more, that the court would favor her. Yet the truth had ultimately caught up to her. Later, she attempted to engage me in conversation in the corridor just outside the courtroom. "I don't want things to be like this," she said, her voice trembling. "I still wish to remain a part of their lives." "Text, that's up to you," I told her, maintaining a steady tone. "Yet, I shall not allow them to be pulled into turmoil. If you're there for them, wonderful. If that's not the case, I'll ensure their well-being regardless." She nodded, dabbing at her eyes, yet I chose not to linger. All words had faded into silence. At this moment, it's just the kids and me, navigating our way through each day as it comes. Indeed, there are obstacles to navigate. Raising a child alone presents its own set of challenges. For the first time in ages, our home exudes a sense of stability and tranquility. And that's invaluable compared to everything I endured. Esteemed audience, we invite you to express your insights in the comment section below. Kindly remember to like, share, and subscribe.